Caden looked at his sleeping lover in his arms as a sweet smile dawned on his face. His eyes turned pink as he gazed at Freya. How can someone be so pretty? He couldn't resist his desires and laid a gentle kiss on her forehead, then her eyelids, her nose, her cheeks. The person in his arms opened her eyes with a slight frown and stared at him blankly. Caden cooed gently, "Did I wake you up?" Freya nodded and nuzzled her face against his chest, preparing to go back to sleep. Caden chuckled. She was like a little kitten. Freya's voice was hoarse as she murmured with her eyes closed, "You're hard again." Caden patted her head. "It's morning, my love. You want to help me deal with it." Freya's brows scrunched up as she felt his hand creeping up her thigh. She shook her head furiously and pinched the back of his hand. "Any more and she will die." She was the one who was supposed to go into heat. However, Caden's stamina really exceeded her expectation. She swore she saw the sun rising before passing out. Recalling that, Freya opened her eyes and glared at him. "You beast." Caden didn't deny her words. Instead, she started placing kisses all over her face, as if to quell her anger. Freya wasn't angry, but she was exhausted. She fell back to slumber pretty quickly. It wasn't until noon that she groggily woke up. She looked around and saw no one. The place where her lover was supposed to be was empty. Freya frowned and called out, "Caden." There was no response. He should have gone to deal with his work. Freya was about to snuggle back into the pillow. However, something caught her eye. A corner of a letter was left out in the drawer beside the bed. Her eyes gazed at the letter before reaching out for the drawer. Her gut feeling told her it was important. Her aquamarine eyes widened. It wasn't only one letter. The whole drawer was packed as the letters sprung out. All of them had a soft pink envelope, making the lavender one stand out. She read out the words softly, "To Freya." All of the letters were for her. Her heart rate increased as she opened the lavender-colored envelope. What did Caden write for her? Freya's hands trembled as she read what he wrote. "Dear Freya, my lovely princess, my fated partner, I miss you so much. I've been writing these letters that you can no longer receive for 5 years. I feel so lonely. There is not a day that goes by without me missing you. My love, I am scared. As the days passed, I find it hard to remember your radiant smile clearly. You seem so far away. I love you so much that my system is fading your brilliance to protect myself from destruction. Yet the words that you said to me that day remain so prominent in my memories. However, I cannot fulfill my promise to live on. I've tried these past 5 years, but I came to a realization it was futile. Caden's purpose, my purpose is to love you. If you're not here, I have no purpose. I'll see you soon." Freya gazed at the letter in her hands blankly. A wave of guilt washed over her. Her body started shaking uncontrollably. The silent room was filled with Freya's sobs. Tears gushed out of her eyes no matter how hard she tried to hold them in. This letter was written by him in his past life before he committed suicide. What has she done to him? But the whole thing was going to repeat itself. However, he won't remember her. It'll be better this time. He won't go through such pain. Freya used to be afraid. After she was gone, she would have to see Caden love another woman. He won't remember her, but she will be watching over them for eternity. Will she be able to handle it? That was too selfish of her. Caden's eyes widened from shock as he came back to the room. Why was his precious lover crying? He kneeled in front of her, kissing her tears away. "Freya, why are you crying? Does it hurt? I'm sorry. I was too rough last night, wasn't I?" Freya sniffled. "No, it's just ... I got emotional after reading the letter." Caden's eyes traveled to the envelope she held in her hands. His eyes softened. "She's so cute. It's all right now. You're here with me." He got up and brought Freya into his embrace on the bed. He comforted her like a little child, rocking back and forth. He explained gently, "After retaining my memories a few years back, I went back to the lavender garden to dig this back up. I put all of the letters I wrote for you in a steel box with my magic, to think it lasted for so long." Freya's trembling hands caressed his cheeks. "I'm sorry, I'm so sorry." He let out a small smile and kissed her forehead. "If you abandon me again, I won't forgive you." Freya didn't speak another word and buried herself in his embrace. She can't delay it any longer. Anymore, and she will definitely waver. This is the consequence of being the lord of the demonic realm. It was something that every lord has to experience. She knew, but like a moth drawn to the flame, she could do nothing about it. After a few hours, she gently said, "Kaiden, I need to go find Alexander. The war will happen in a few days. Have the others get prepared." Kaiden's eyes narrowed. "I'm going with you." The room was silent. Only the sound of the ticking clock could be heard. She could feel his mood turning sour. Freya pondered for a moment before furrowing her brows. "You can't. I need to speak to him about something, and it'll endanger you if you know. I don't want to risk your safety." Sensing her lover's uneasiness, Freya looked at him with disbelief. "Do you perhaps think that I'll cheat on you? I gave my first time to you." Kaiden's eyes widened and denied, "No, I trust you. I'm just worried about your safety." Freya observed his facial expression. Seeing that he wasn't doing it out of jealousy, she sighed. "Then you can watch from afar. However, don't eavesdrop on the conversation, okay? I don't want you to become the next lord. I'll be sad." Freya's eyes curved as she pointed to the blonde man in front of her. "That's why he'll be watching over there. Isn't he cute?" The small hut behind them was something only they knew of. It wasn't prominent, but only those chosen can enter the vicinity of this small hut. Because this little hut led to the demon realm's core. Only higher beings can withstand the radiation brought by this monster, and only the lord of the demon realm can hold its core. It was the ideal place to have a confidential conversation. Alexander's ignored her question as he raised his brows. "To think you'd find me on your own. Do you not hate me?" Freya rolled her eyes and said with sarcasm, "What do you think? If not for the fact that you were Dylan and helped me for the past few lifetimes, we wouldn't be having this conversation." The man became silent. His crimson eyes stared back at her. "It's for your good." A scoff came out from her lips. "I get to decide that, don't you think?" His eyes turned away from her. "The war is still going to happen whether we have this conversation or not." Freya stayed silent and looked at him like he was an idiot. "I know, I'm not here on that matter. Who knows when we'll see each other again, after the war." "You mean you'll?" Alexander's brows knitted together. This wasn't what he wanted. Freya shrugged. "That's right. I'll probably be gone soon after the war. So before that, I need to make things clear." Alexander sat down on the grass field without a word. But Freya knew he was saying, "Go ahead, I'm listening." Her eyes turned sharp. "I'm sure you have a misconception that we're like twins. We indeed spent quite a long time in the realm of nothingness. Honestly, I thought so at first, but that's not the case. I think too much of my memory was returned to me by mistake." Alexander looked at her with his mouth open. He did guess what she was going to say. Freya smiled at his expression. "That's right, I'm actually your senior. Before becoming the lord of the demon realm, I was once the lord of the heavenly realm." That cool wind caressing his cheeks seemed to have frozen his movements as well. He forced the word out from his throat. "What?" Seeing his eyes widen in disbelief, a smile dawned on Freya's face. It was a long time since he last lost his composure. She sighed and cupped her cheeks. "I'm going to become the life source of the demon realm soon, so I might as well tell you. The moment I am eliminated, you will become the new lord of the demon realm." He didn't know what to say. As though some invisible hand was choking his throat, he couldn't take his breath. He didn't know if he should be shocked that Freya was going to cease to exist or the fact that he was going to be the next lord of the demon realm. Seeing him like this, Freya couldn't help but comment, "Are you so mentally weak?" Alexander stared at her blankly before desperately grabbing her shoulders. His hasty tone made Freya frown. "I'm sure anyone will be shocked to hear so much information. I thought I'm doing it for your sake, but you're going to die. And I'm going to become the lord of the demon realm. That doesn't make sense." Freya glanced at Kaiden and signed him an okay. Her lover had been on the edge. She didn't need to see him to know that he was ready to pounce. Freya removed his hands and said in composure, "Refrain from making such sudden actions, thank you. Anyways, killing my uncle only hastened my death. I told you you don't know what is good for me." Alexander had a sour look on his face. He never knew his decisions were forcing her to die quicker. Freya didn't hesitate. "There's no use crying over spilt milk. The war shall proceed. I shall emerge as the victor. The war will not kill her, but it will play an important part in reviving Andrew. Although Freya's patience was slowly tricking away, she still allowed him the chance to calm himself down. She observed his mood before waiting for a chance to continue. Let's get back to the topic. Do you know why no lord can reign for eternity now? Even though we are said to be immortal, we will walk towards destruction on our own accord. Question marks floated all over his head as he gazed at her like a lost puppy. Freya couldn't help but glance at him in disbelief. Has he become dumb? He can't even comprehend such a simple concept. When I was the lord of the heavenly realm, I had no attachment. I was close to no one. I didn't particularly have anything I hold dear. You could say that everything was dull and colorless. I've been wondering why that was the case. I found my answer: angels are prideful creatures. You'll feel that no one was above you or close to your level. It feels natural to distance yourself from everything. Alexander stayed silent. He couldn't deny anything she said. He did have one attachment though, although it was a misunderstanding on his part. One glance and Freya could tell what he was thinking right away. Her eyes narrowed. Even towards me, you claim that you care for me, but you went ahead and made all the decisions for me, because you think that you're above me, even if it's not intentional. Alexander's eyes drooped as he focused his gaze on the swaying field of white flowers. You seem to understand this feeling very well. Did you experience the same thing? A smile reappeared on Freya's countenance, her eyes curved, yet it was like a black hole with no emotion. I wouldn't say it was the same. I was even more extreme. I killed him because I couldn't stand the thought of him achieving happiness before I did. A mere demon, how could he? He kept on turning back time, disrupting my realm as well. Won't it be easier for me if he was dead? Her words made him feel a chill down his spine. Again and again he was reminded of how heartless the person sitting beside him was. I won't find any excuses for what I did, nor do I regret it. After all, after becoming the lord of the demon realm, I understood. He wasn't as happy as he seemed. Like the current me, he was stuck in the endless torture of losing his loved ones. However, I also learned that the time spent with those who are precious to us is extremely valuable. Seeing his frown deepen, Freya knew he had no clue what she was saying. She wouldn't understand it either if she didn't experience it herself. Being the lord of the heavenly realm makes one indifferent to all things happening in the world. That was how fate ensured that this loop won't end. She flicked his forehead with a grin. After being released from being the lord of the heavenly realm, you will finally see the world that is filled with colors and set away your pride. You'll experience all types of emotions: pain, joy, anger, bliss, love, and so on. That sounds unappealing. I don't like pain. Freya interrupted him, gazing at her lover who was waiting for her. Isn't that what it means to live? It's the feeling of being alive. Existing and living are two different things. Soon, your desire to protect what is yours will soar, and you'll do whatever it takes to make them stay, even if it's going against the world or sacrificing yourself. That's how the cycle works. It's how the system makes sure the reign of one lord doesn't last too long. However, it was the first time she defied the rules of her own will. She was once proud of it, but it was just part of a larger plan, and she was just a chess piece. But did it matter? No. I can't break this cycle, thus my existence shall come to an end. As simple as that. She didn't know who she said that to. It could be a warning to Alexander or maybe a reminder to herself. This heart-wrenching pain was nothing but fate that was set in stone. Emotions swirled in her eyes. When you become the new lord, please look after them, if you remember our conversation today. Alexander couldn't comprehend her. She was on the brink of death, yet all she cared about was them. ... I will try my best. Freya stood up and started walking away. Next time we meet, it'll be on the battlefield. Alexander stayed silent. He observed the smile she directed to her lover. It was a smile from the heart, unlike the fake smile she showed him. The smile was sweet like honey as her gaze couldn't hide the affection she held towards him. The man also looped his arms around her waist. His actions were gentle, like holding the most precious treasure in the world. Alexander fell into a reverie. Will he be able to smile like that one day? Brother Luca. And Freya called out to him with a wide grin. It was almost time. She could feel the fiery passion of her enemies as they approached the barrier of the demon realm. Her crystal-clear aquamarine eyes softened and glanced at Andrew's body that was floating beside her brother. It was finally time. Her uncle will finally come back. Luca took her into an embrace. His little sister didn't look too well. Are you going to be all right? Freya's movement halted very briefly before hugging back. Her tone was light. I'll be fine. Let's go. Everyone's waiting. She pushed the door open. Inside the meeting room were those she held dear. Her brows knitted slightly, and a reluctant smile flashed on her face before vanishing right away without a trace. She approached the violet magic stone in the middle of the room and softly laid her palm on top of it. Indolence was evident in her eyes, as though what was about to come had nothing to do with her. Her steady voice resounded all over the demon realm. The enemy is approaching. They'll be here in approximately 15 minutes. Be prepared to fight, but most importantly, stay alive. There will be both angels and humans. When facing those white pests, cut off their wings and have them in contact with the ground, dead or alive. I'll deal with them soon after. Humans are easy to deal with, but never let down your guard. May we be the final victor. Freya took a deep breath and let go. Her eyes swept over to her father. Daddy, can I have a hug? Archie wouldn't reject his daughter. He patted her head while having her in his embrace. Freya snuggled against him and murmured, "Thank you. I love you, Dad." After that, she went over to Kaiden and pecked his lips. Be well, my little fox. Don't push yourself too much. He pressed his forehead on hers and nodded. Freya has entrusted him with her powers and the most important and dangerous role, that is to face Alexander. Only the powers of a lord can face another lord, but Freya had other things to do. She didn't want to endanger him if she could. She embraced each of them and said sternly, "Make sure to prioritize your safety." Even with her butterflies inside of them, she still felt anxious. But her plan was already completed. The gate to the demon realm was already small enough for her to close it immediately. Freya summoned her butterflies as they fluttered under Andrew, carrying his body. Most of his soul has been secured inside, only the most vital step is needed to resurrect him. Freya glanced at them for the last time before forcing out her words. Then, I'm off. Her steps were not hurried as she headed to the center of the 4 castles of the Demon Kings. The demon realm is round, not a sphere but a circle instead. It keeps expanding as the population increases. Her eyes narrowed dangerously. In the center of the circles lies her destination, the core of the demon realm. The entrance is there, Captain. The captain of the angels looked over to Alexander. He nodded his head. Enter. The demons were all prepared, thus they were not surprised when they saw the humans and angels entering the demon realm. Were they afraid? No. Austin and Alistar fought side by side. In the blink of an eye, the angels all had their wings brutally ripped off and thrown to the ground. Unlike demons, they couldn't fly without their wings. "TSK, you have more kills than me," Austin complained. Alistar didn't want to give much comment to his twin, so he only scoffed. However, they both knew they loved the feeling of seeing the despair on their enemies' faces. The twins laughed as the blood splattered over their countenance. Oscar wasn't any better. He was the Demon King, so he wasn't going to lay low. Sophia sighed at the sight of her husband and sons. They were demons for a reason. Vivian was enjoying the whimpers of the angels as her whip entangled with their bodies. She loved watching young men with vigor being tortured mentally without being able to do anything. She licked her sharp canines as they whimpered under her. If it wasn't for her master's request, these cuties would have become her sex slaves. Mason glanced at her coldly as he completed his kill. Concentrate, leave your hobbies aside. We must complete master's request without any flaw. Vivian clicked her tongue as she ended the lives of the angels. I know. Relax a little, won't you? Luca fought without any emotions present on his face. He dealt with the generals of the angels with a breeze. He didn't even have to use his gukin. Even though the generals should be as strong as the demon kings, seems like their haughtiness made them skip out on their daily training. Power without hard work is fatal. Luca glanced at them coldly. His father was stronger than him. How was he killed by these weaklings? But Freya did say the one who killed his father was the Lord of the Heavenly Realm. Luca glanced at his partner. He seemed less efficient today, James. What's wrong with you? Tears gradually formed in James' eyes. I don't know. I feel like I'm remembering something very important, but the information feels stuck somewhere. Luca's not stupid. The only one who could alter James' memories. Only Freya could do that. His heartbeat started sounding in his ears as he felt something stuck in his throat. The trepidation made his eyes narrow. He hastily said, I'll settle those who come after you. Recall it quickly. He has to find a way to tell the others too. Alexander's red eyes gazed at the two men in front of him. Both of you trust Freya too much. Arche and Kaiden stood in front of the Lord of the Heavenly Realm, blocking his advance to the core of the demon realm. There were no results despite fighting for the last 20 minutes. They were equal in strength, with Arche and Kaiden getting the upper hand. Alexander sighed and said, Move, I won't kill any of you. She will be even more upset with me. Green veins protruded from Arche's forehead despite his calm expression. What makes you think that we won't kill you? Because she won't put you guys in such danger. You're just here to stall me, aren't you? Do you even have any idea what your daughter plans to do? Kaiden's eyes narrowed dangerously. What do you know? Before Alexander could answer him, an angel came by his side. My lord, the gate has been sealed. We have no way to retreat. Alexander's brows scrunched up. She has chosen this path. He underestimated her insanity. If it has come to this, the victor has been decided. His murmur was low, but the other two caught it. It's too late. Arche's pupils dilated. What's too late? Just when Alexander was about to explain, James came and quickly shoved the letters into Arche and Kaiden's hands. His tears ran down his cheeks like waterfalls. Master. Master is going to die. Arche felt his mind going blank as he stared at the letter in his hand. He processed James' words. His daughter was going to die? A buzzing sound resounded in his head. Her words echoed in his mind like a broken record. His daughter's smile reappeared in his mind, overlapping with one another. Daddy, there's no such thing as an endless dream. Would you rather remember me if I disappear, or have your memories of me erased so you won't feel the pain? It started raining. Liquid as red as the flames of hell fell from the sky, a drop and another until it started pouring without care. The sticky blood rain had a fishy smell that was unpleasant to all. The demons detested it and started seeking coverage. The angelic voice of a lady resounded amidst the screams and despair. An eerie hymn was heard throughout the realm. It had a peculiar and mesmerizing tone that deeply etched itself into people's hearts. The young lady floated above the crowd dressed in white, looking as pure as a lily, yet it couldn't hide the dangers that came from within. A purple transparent barrier surrounded her as she sang. Her peach blossom hair entangled with the wind, and her supposed aquamarine eyes glowed as golden as the sun. Most associate the sun with warmth, yet they were devoid of heat, empty and full of bloodlust. Screams came from the army of angels as they felt their flesh corroding away. Melting. I'm melting. Their skin started oozing like mucus coating every grain of their body. They melted away like ice cream in extreme heat. Arche stared at the pile of melting tissues that left only their bones and a pile of red behind. His eyes held discomfort. It was not out of pity, but instead of a misbelief of his daughter's plan. Demons were immune to the rain, but it was lethal to angels and humans. Some ran to take cover but were unfortunately dragged and kicked out by the house owners. It was as she wanted. Her cold glance chilled the heart of her lover. She was looking at these lives as though they were mere trash as she hummed the song that summoned the acidic rain. The arc of her lips was devious as she looked at them suffer. Pure ecstasy flooded her mind when she saw the pain on Alexander's face. Although he won't be affected by the rain as a higher being, he must not feel good seeing his citizens being treated so cruelly. This was his retribution for hurting Andrew. She held deep grudges. As though possessed, a twisted grin appeared on her face. Shit, she's doing this on her own will, but the demon realm somewhat affected her sanity. Alexander cursed under his breath. Archer headed to his daughter, tears pouring down his face. Freya, my baby girl, you have to stop this. Wasn't it you who said that we have to move on? Freya glanced at her dad, who was banging the barrier in frustration. It took her a while to realize who it was. He must have finished reading the letter. She knew he didn't dare to use his full force to break the barrier due to the fear of her getting hurt. A little bit of warmth resurfaced in her eyes and the twisted smile turned soft. There's no turning back. I love you, Daddy. Caden's ears dropped. This was the first thing he heard when he rushed to her. His voice broke as he raised his voice desperately. You liar. You said you'll be with me this time. Yet he couldn't bring himself to continue yelling at his precious lover. He saw something breaking in her eyes as she blinked away tears that were threatening to fall. She squeezed out in a hoarse voice, sorry, my love. I'm sorry. This is the most beneficial way. She must be in equal pain. Why didn't he think that she would be in pain too? The letter written for him was filled with her regrets. Freya took a deep breath as she pushed away the emotions that had resurfaced. The spheres of light gathered on top of her with the wave of her hands. The souls of those dead angels and humans held the mana and life energy that she needed to revive her uncle. It was finally time. The magnificent light entered Freya's body, acting as a filter before entering Andrew's. She had stabilized his soul with hers before this, now she needed to revitalize everything. She clenched her teeth as she endured the torturing pain. Her complexion became as pale as a ghost. Arke could only stare as his daughter sacrificed herself. There was nothing he could do. Nothing. Caden's hands clenched into fists. He didn't notice how his fingernails had already drugged into his skin. After the blinding light dispersed, Freya saw the man who was lying flat and slowly sat up. Joy flooded her expression as she went over and hugged Andrew's waist. She threw herself towards him. She missed him so much. She murmured to herself, it succeeded. However, before she could take a good look at the man's expression, her head was karate chopped. Freya pouted as she glanced at Andrew. Uncle, I revived you but you hit me. Droplets of tears wetted her cheeks, cutting off her words. Her uncle was crying. Andrew wasn't laughing as she wanted him to. Are you an idiot? Who wants to be revived? You think I would be happy if you did this? Freya's actions paused. A weak sigh came from her as she said with a small smile, I'm sorry for being selfish, but it was because of me that you were killed. Andrew wanted to scold her, but he couldn't when he saw Freya's disappearing arm. Freya glanced at it like it was nothing before forcing out a smile. She wanted to avoid the gaze of the others. That's why she didn't dare to look at them after reviving Andrew. But she must bid a proper farewell. She stood up slowly and turned around. As she thought, seeing them sad makes her heart turn bitter. It's like thousands of needles are poking at her. She looked at her body fading into her beloved butterflies. It was the end. It was a tiring journey. For the other, they only remember their current lives. However, she experienced many lifetimes, goodbyes, and hardships. She loved them a lot, but she was exhausted. Parting with them is painful, really excruciating. But perhaps this was the best happy ending for everyone. Finally, she gets to rest. A satisfied and warm smile dawned on her countenance as the butterflies flew towards the brilliance of the sun. Stay well everyone. Bye-bye. Who am I? It's dark. I feel lonely. The girl lifted her heavy footsteps as she advanced towards the only source of light in this never-ending darkness. It's been days, months, or maybe years. Yet no matter how much she ran, the light seemed to be getting further away. Why am I here? Her legs felt like they were burning from furious flames, as though they were needles pricking them with every step she took. Why did she have to suffer like this? She tripped and fell to the ground. Her eyes were wet with tears of agony. When did she start crying? Why was she so desperate to chase after that beam of hope? For whom? Or has she committed an unspeakable sin? Was this hell? A weak whimper escaped her lips. Who am I? She had no memory since the moment she opened her eyes. She could remember the blurry silhouette but nothing more. She felt her heart clenching every time those hazy figures appeared in her mind. She has to get back to them. They're still waiting. But who were they? Her eyes widened when her hands touched the ground. It was cold. A helpless laugh escaped from her dry lips. Yeah, the whole place was initially cold. She weakly got off from the icy ground and started walking again. It was cold, freezing even. Would he drape a blanket around her if she told him? Who was he? Her head buzzed in pain. Who were they? Trapped in this darkness, will she ever get out? Blood seeped out from her worn-out foot, and a trail of red was left behind her as she tried her best to drag herself out of this hellhole. Her crimson blood froze as they shined as though they were crystals. It was a mesmerizing sight in the dark. She was running at first, but now she could no longer stand. She dragged her heavy body with her arms, like a mermaid that was caught on land. She couldn't stop. The light was getting further away. The pain in her legs became numb. She bit her lips as she crawled toward her only hope. However, her arms eventually gave out. She lay there panting as her sweat mixed with her tears. She was really drowned in darkness now. There was no light. She felt as though someone was digging her heart out. She coughed out mouthfuls of blood from exhaustion, looking so pitiful and weak. Yet, there was no longer anyone beside her. Something dear to her was lost. What was it? Have you been well? The voice made her tilt her head up, and the man in a white robe reached out to her. However, she remained in a daze. The cells in her body were screaming she did not like this person. She eyed the man warily from head to toe. Who are you? The brief expression of shock on the man's face did not escape her eyes. His brows furrowed before realization struck him. His eyes curved in amusement. Your spell backfired. Ha, they love you so much that your spell couldn't alter their memories of you. Confusion surfaced on Freya's countenance. What is this man talking about? His firm voice rang in her eyes. Putting that aside, from now on you'll be fate. Freya looked at him in confusion. What? Fate didn't feel like explaining to a person with no prior knowledge. As if remembering something, he snapped his fingers. You'll no longer have your sight after this. You're going to become blind. But you'll be able to see the world in another way. Freya glared at Fate like he was crazy. This man popped out and said a bunch of shit. Now he's taking her sight away. If not for her weak state, she would have torn him to shreds. The girl flinched slightly before the sphere of light dawned in front of her. She reached towards it carefully. Everything she held dear ... was in there. The moment she touched the sphere, it shot right into her forehead. She screamed in agony as she held her head. It was excruciating. Memories flashed through her mind, her father, her lover, her family, and her friends. It was them, the ones whom she was trying to recall. Tears flowed out from her aquamarine eyes like crystals in the darkness. The spell she cast rebounded on her because of their strong desire to remember her. This was what fate was trying to say. Even though it would mean that they have to suffer the pain of losing her, they would never exchange the world for the priceless memories they have with her. The former Fate chuckled beside her as he snapped his fingers. You have yet to see how they reacted after your death. A mirage appeared in front of her, showing the exact moment when her existence should have ceased to exist. Trepidation filled her heart. The twisted faces filled with despair and desperation appeared in her view. A moment of silence was like the calm before the storm. A piercing shriek from Vivian made Freya jump like a cat in shock. Tears streamed down the woman's cheeks as she mumbled in disbelief. She said it was going to be all right. She said she had everything planned out. Arke was still staring at that very spot where his daughter crumbled into pieces and vanished into thin air. It was as though that was his heart that was gone. Cadence felt that everything was spinning. How many times does he have to lose her? She lied to him again and again. He felt their bond being broken, the bond that even death can't do apart. His voice trembled and cracked as he sobbed. Her soul is destroyed. Luca's pupils shrunk. He couldn't believe how a person smiling at him just a few hours ago could disappear from his life forever. He mumbled, falling into self-denial. What do you mean her soul is destroyed? It can't be. It can't be. Andrew stared at the leaving butterflies. If this were the case, he didn't want to be revived at all. He just wants the good old days back, the days when Freya is with them. Not a drop of tear fell from Mason's eyes. He only knitted his brows. However, Freya knew that the more saddened he was, the calmer he was bound to be. It was a habit of his to hide his burning emotions. James kept wiping his tears away. How could he not remember anything at all before this all happened? He was an ancient demon, for fuck's sake. Freya was expecting their reaction. A small emotionless chuckle escaped her lips. Her brows furrowed as tears swirled in her eyes. What was this emotion? She felt happy because of how much they loved her but simultaneously was heartbroken by their pain. She closed her eyes knowing she would wake up to them again. However, the girl knew her light aquamarine eyes were bound never to reflect those she loved the most, and only darkness awaited. The stunning young man caressed his lover's pale cheek with his trembling hands, wishing to hear her sweet voice once again. His movements were gentle as if she would break any moment, handling her like the most precious treasure in the world. Kaiden's snow-white hair cast a shadow around his eyes. His amethyst eyes were filled with grief and anguish as he stared at his lover's corpse. Her lifeless face shattered his heart into pieces. The moment she dissipated into butterflies, not a single trace of her was left in this universe. He could no longer sense her presence through their bond, and that feeling of helplessness frightened him. The moment that left him in agony and despair allowed him to muster all his power to keep Freya's butterflies from flying away, keeping a tiny fragment of her soul out of desperation. With the help of others, he managed to transfer that fragment into Freya's corpse from her first life. It was a relief that Arkin never stopped using mana to keep his daughter's body from rotting. At least they had a medium, yet the results they had gotten slowly yet surely dimmed the flames of hope in their hearts. The person they longed for the most did not even show signs of waking up. However, they didn't want to give up on this slim chance that the person all of them cherished so much will return to them someday. They could only wish for the best. Kaiden gently laid his forehead onto hers. He whispered softly, tears seeping out from his eyes, "When are you coming back to me, my love? I'm trying my best to hold on." Just then, the girl in front of him opened her eyes. Her aquamarine eyes, as though a frozen lake, stared right at him. Her eyes were empty and unfocused. In normal circumstances, anyone would be shocked if a corpse suddenly opened her eyes, even if it was someone they treasured. Yet in this surreal moment, Kaiden did not flinch in the slightest. He closed his eyes with a sigh as though this was a daily occurrence. He brought her body into an embrace as he snuggled against her body, which was as cold as ice. The body void of warmth twisted his heart painfully. He missed her warmth. He let out a self-mocking laugh, and a painful mumble came out from him. It started again. The girl heard what he said. She asked in a gentle voice, "What started again?" Kaiden looked at her eyes as something in his broke. He mumbled to himself, "Did I fall asleep again? This dream again? You're always back in my dreams, yet when I wake up you're just lying in there." Although the others came to visit her frequently, Kaiden was no doubt the one who stayed by her side the most after her death. He would come every day and stay for hours after completing all his tasks as one of the Demon Kings. Talking to a dead body may seem crazy, but it was the only thing keeping him sane, away from the verge of madness. The fluffy fox ears drooped down. "Maybe it's better if I don't wake up. That way I can be with you forever." Hearing his words, Freya's heart clenched as she felt her tears threatening to fall out. The moment she woke up, she was engulfed with darkness. She no longer has her sight. However, she has gained another way to see the world through a third-person perspective, which she has yet to get used to. But it was enough for her to peck the lips of her precious lover. She cooed in a gentle tone as her tears fell along her cheeks. "It's not a dream, I'm back, my little fox." Freya cupped his cheek in her hand as she leaned in and pecked his lips. "I'm sorry, I love you so much." Seeing Kaiden stunned, Freya continued giving him butterfly kisses all over his face. Kaiden's brain stopped functioning as he received a shower of kisses from his beloved. This wasn't in his dream before. The realization struck him like thunder. The nine-tailed fox's eyes widened and his arm around his lover tightened. Freya could feel his fear and trepidation from the embrace, as though he was terrified the person in his arms would crumble into dust. Seeing the misbelief in his eyes, Freya chuckled lightly. Kaiden whispered her name repeatedly. His voice was hoarse from the sobbing. Only his sobs in his desperation when calling out her name were heard echoing in the empty room. She consoled her lover by rubbing circles on his back, hoping to ease his emotions that were in turmoil. Kaiden's smile made her heart warm, as the Arctic fox's ears perked up. "You're back, ... you're finally back." She snuggled into his chest. I'm back. This time, no one can tear us apart." Kaiden spared no hesitation in kissing her lips. His kiss was gentle and soft, yet deep. It showed his longing, his desperation, his fear, and his pain. Freya was plenty obedient and let him do as he pleased. A layer of mist coated her pale eyes as her face flushed pink, yet she still didn't forget to tease his ears. Kaiden subdued her naughty hands as he felt her licking his lips in return. Kaiden couldn't help but sigh. She likes pushing him to his limit, but it wasn't the time. Freya slumped into his chest when she pulled away, ending the passionate kiss. Kaiden leaned down and spoke right next to her ears. "This time I'll lock you up." Freya's eyes widened before smiling. "Go ahead, I'm not going anywhere this time." Freya wasn't in a rush to meet the others. She owed her lover too much. She enjoyed the peace in his embrace as Kaiden listened to the beating of her heart. Her body was still icy cold, but her heartbeat was the finest melody in the universe to him. Her breath, the small slump and rise of her body as she breathed, was the most divine sight to him. Every day he dreamt of her, yet when he hugged her, there was no heartbeat to be heard. His treasure was back, and this time he will ensure that she'll be unable to leave. Sensing how much time had passed, Kaiden carried her in his arms. No matter how well this body was maintained, it would be impossible for her to walk properly without adapting. He knew she was spending alone time with him as compensation. The tacit understanding between mates were no joke. He had savored their time alone, and it was time to reveal the great news to others. When they walked out the door, everyone had gathered. Kaiden had already told them through telepathy that Freya had awoken, and those who received the new teleported here immediately. Arka's eyes softened as he looked at his baby daughter. His eyes became teary as he walked up to her. His voice cracked as he patted her head. "Welcome back." Freya looked at her father, who had thinned with dark circles under his eyes. A painful sting coursed through her body. She nodded with a bright smile. Luca was already crying without a care, hugging his little cousin tightly. Andrew gave a thumbs up. No one knew how much pressure he was living with. The pent-up guilt in him was going to burst if his adorable niece didn't come back. Alistar and Austin were also overflowing with tears of joy. They were childhood friends with Freya. It was torturing losing her for the past year. Oscar and Sophia, who treated Freya like their very own child, were delighted to see her back. All the major sins kneeled on one knee. They had tears in their eyes, yet their radiant smile that lit up their faces showed their emotions. "Master, welcome back." Though messy, the girl's cherry blossom hair framed her face. Her eyes shined brightly while still being carried by her lover. "I'm back, everyone." As if reminded by something, she tilted her head and let out an awkward chuckle. "Just so you guys know, I'm blind now." Kaiden already sensed something wrong with her line of sight, so his grip on her was still stable. Yet he couldn't help his heart sink. Everyone except Kaiden, what? The girl blinked her aquamarine eyes innocently, her index finger tapping her cheek as she pondered how to explain the situation to them. "Although I am blind, I can see the world more clearly than ever. I just need some time to get used to it. So, don't worry," Freya said with a smile, casually waving her hand. The rest let out a sigh of relief, yet Kaiden's mood remained solemn. He asked carefully, feeling his heart throb with pain. His watery eyes, coated with tears and reddened at the ends, searched for reassurance. "What are you now? Are you still going to be devoured by the demon realm?" If she was going to leave him again, he would go insane. She had no idea how much he longed to destroy the demon realm the moment she passed. Yet a string of rationality held him back. She had sacrificed herself for the demon realm she loved so much, sacrificed herself to keep them all safe and alive. His actions would render all her efforts futile and evaporate like water vapors. His words made the others cautious again, their eyes all turned towards Freya simultaneously. Arka's back straightened subconsciously as he held his daughter's hands. They were not fading away, but it was too early to let his guard down. Freya couldn't help but avoid their gazes, her nose feeling sour. With a stern yet genuine gaze, she said, "I have become fate. It just means I have more work to do. I'll be able to live for a long time. I won't leave this time." Luca's brows furrowed. "Then what has become of the former fate? Will he come back to harm you?" Freya shrugged, complicated feelings swirling in her eyes. "I wonder too, but I doubt he'll come back." She recalled Fate's peaceful smile before she woke up, falling into a reverie. She never thought that the arrogant man would also be in pain. The man closed his eyes with fatigue. "I tried to prevent you from ending up like me, but you proved me wrong. You were able to protect them." Freya was pulled into this realm filled with white lilies after her memories returned to her. Although she hoped to see her family the moment she opened her eyes, she didn't complain. Freya was silent, allowing him to continue. Fate let out a self-deprecating chuckle. I did the exact same thing as you when I was the lord of the demon realm, yet I couldn't protect those dear to me. Rewinding time again and again didn't work out. I thought cutting off your feelings for them from the start would save you from the pain I experienced. Now that Alexander is the next lord, I hope you do not repeat my mistakes as fate. Freya acknowledged his words. Her eyelashes fluttered with the uneasiness of her heart. She knew she had to say it before it was too late. She had a feeling they would never meet again. Her eyes drooped. Although I am still unhappy with you killing my loved ones for several lifetimes, I'm sorry for killing you when you were the lord of the demon realm. When she was the lord of the heavenly realm, she did not hesitate to destroy the man. After all, he threatened the peace of the three realms. It was her duty. However, she had to admit she envied the love he received from those around him, and even more so, the love he was able to give back. She had been cold and ruthless. Fate's eyes widened before he let out a dry chuckle. So you remembered, I should thank you for killing me. If I wanted to live on, you wouldn't have been able to kill me. Freya nodded in response. After all, the power of both lords from the two realms was equal in strength. Killing one another was no easy task. The man lay down and explained, I was already in agony when the fate from our time killed my loved ones, yet I was unable to end my agony. You were the one who ended my pain in that moment. However, he was trapped as fate, unable to reunite with his loved ones. He suppressed his feelings to protect himself from the despair he had once experienced. He turned his head to face the girl. Always remember your name. Once those who witnessed your existence disappear from this world, you will be forgotten by yourself. He no longer remembered his own name, he only knew that he was fate. Unable to recall the hazy faces of those he loved, unable to remember who he was, what a pathetic being he had become. Freya was lost in thought before suddenly speaking. Her voice was soft. Lucian. Your name is Lucian. Lucian was stunned before letting out a hearty laugh. Freya didn't dare to move, she had never seen him show any positive emotions before. He let out a soft smile. I'm finally free. Freya snapped out of her daze as she glanced at her loved ones. She was lucky, really lucky. Tears gradually fell from her eyes like pearls as she started laughing with joy. I'm back, I'm finally back. Everyone was shocked by her sudden burst of intense sentiment. Andrew was quick, like a magician. A cup of pudding appeared out of nowhere. He gave his niece her favorite sweets, trying to console her. Freya sniffed as she took the pudding, trying to stop her sobs. How old do you think I am? Despite saying that, she still ate the pudding with much vigor. Her peach blossom eyes curved into crescents as they shined. So sweet, it's good. Her heart felt sour and sweet. Was it finally okay for her to look forward to the future? She had finally lived past 16 years old, and everyone was still safe and sound right by her side. Caden tightened his embrace, trying to console his lover. When she returned, their bond was also back. He could feel her turmoil of emotions. Alistar and Austin clumsily performed a comedy show to cheer her up, earning laughter from everyone. Mason quickly prepared blankets and snacks for her while Vivian started to get head pats from her. Luca prepared a lot of gems, hoping his master would stop crying. Cinder jumped into his master's embrace. The creature was depressed when his master was gone. He snuggled against her belly, trying to get back the comfort he lost. Time passed without anyone noticing. Like sand, it slipped away slowly yet surely. The seasons in the demon realm changed from summer to spring again. The 4 moons hung in the night sky, giving light to those who needed a path. The girl smiled brightly as she sat underneath the cherry blossom tree. The flower petals fell like rain and danced in the wind. She hugged her cousin with excitement. Congrats to you both. Brother Luca, I'm going to be an aunt. She then turned to James. I want to hug you, but you're pregnant. Still, it took you long enough to be together. James sighed as his lips twitched. Master, you have no idea how much effort I put into chasing your brother. Still, thanks for helping. Andrew was delighted. I am going to be a grandpa. Oscar and Sophia, being more experienced in taking care of children, had already bought gifts, waiting for the little demon to be born. Austin and Ellistar were curious as cats. It was their first time seeing a man get pregnant. When they were in the human realm, they had only seen aunties with round bellies. Vivian and Mason couldn't help but discuss amongst themselves as they looked at James with unhidden disgust, and then at Luca with pity. Who knew James would get such a young lover, that old pervert? Caden softly whispered in Freya's ears, his hands fidgeting with the fox-shaped diamond ring on her ring finger. Do you want one? Freya naturally knew what her husband was getting at. Despite hating kids, he was willing to try becoming a father if she wanted another member of their family. She shook her head and held his hand as she glanced at the butterfly-shaped diamond ring on his pale hand. A doting smile appeared on her lips. No, I want to spend more alone time with you. Caden hummed and buried his face into the crook of her neck. Her scent calmed him down immensely. She was here, he could hear her heartbeat. Freya's eyes widened as she ruffled his hair. After deeming she had given him enough time, the girl pecked his cheeks before walking towards her father. The man was gazing at the sky with Cinder on his lap. The man had a good posture, looking as though he had come out of a painting. She hugged him from behind the chair as she met with his eyes. Daddy, what are you doing? Arca's smile made Freya's movement pause. He patted her head softly like he always did when she was younger. His voice was gentle. You've grown wonderfully. I never thought that I would be able to see you grow up. Freya tightened her embrace around his shoulders as she beamed. Don't worry, I still have much to grow. I'll keep on growing, and you'll be there to witness it. Arca chuckled at her cute antics. You're right, my beloved daughter. As the spring zephyr swept past them, the girl's cotton candy pink hair swayed in the wind. Her aquamarine eyes reflected hope like a clear river stream flowing in the wild. She's not letting go this time. This was not the end, it was the beginning.